What's going on, everybody? I hope you're having a good day, and I hope you're having a good week as always. I'm here to report that the Democratic Party is just completely collapsing. They lost one of their biggest positions to a 28-year-old socialist, and this is not a mean broadcast. I'm not here to make fun of anybody. I'm not here to spew out opinions or false equivalencies or anything. Really, if you are a Democrat or a left-leaning person, I would appreciate, even if maybe just for this live stream, if you listen and pay attention to what I'm saying, because I'm not your enemy. I'm not trying to be hateful. I'm not trying to be negative or make stuff up. I'm trying to tell you and report on the truth that the media has not reported on for a year. I'm here to report on the truth of how people feel, how millions of people feel, because I called this. I told you after Bernie Sanders lost. I told you that Donald Trump was going to win the election. I called that in May of 2016. I told you over a year ago that socialists were going to take over the Democratic Party. I've called this for months, for over a year now, that's where the direction is going. So I'm not here to be hateful. I'm not here to say, oh, I'm a Democrat or I'm a liberal and I don't like Anomaly. He's, because he doesn't agree with me. That's fine. We don't have to agree on everything. But please, I am your friend. Please listen to me, because if you don't, you will continue to lose the party to socialists. I've said it for a year. It's already starting to happen. And if you do really care about the Democratic Party, you have to pivot and learn. Because when a basketball team loses a game, they don't say, oh my God, I'm going to blame Bernie Sanders and his supporter and Donald Trump and his supporter, and I'm going to scream on television and I'm going to get top-level movie producers to call everybody Nazis. That's not how you win a basketball game when you lose. You win by going, studying tape, analyzing what you did wrong. You don't blame the refs. You don't blame the other team. You analyze what you did wrong, and you pivot and get better. And that's what the Democratic Party isn't doing. That's why they're having a major collapse. That's why they lost the election, and why they're literally losing their party to socialists, people further left than them. It's happening. I've called it for a year, and I just want to report on that on multiple levels, why the Democratic Party is collapsing, and go through a psychological and analytical, political, analysis. I use way too many words there. But you know what I'm saying. I really want to break down why it's happening, because there is a psychological, political, and even emotional reason that the Democratic Party is collapsing. And I've tried to tell people for a year, and I've got yelled at by people with rainbow-colored profile pictures. And no disrespect, I have, thousands of gays and LGBT supporters. But I'm just saying, people that are super liberal are yelling at me and screaming at me saying, Anomaly, you're so terrible for telling me the truth. Why do you want to help me win elections? And why do you want me not to lose my party to socialists? I'm just a friend that's a little blunt and a little, I tell you the truth. I don't tell you the comfortable lie. I want to let you know that the Democratic Party and the left, the whole ideology is collapsing, and there is a reason. So that's what this broadcast is about. Thank you guys so much for joining me. God bless you. God bless America. God bless your family. God bless the world. We're going to wait about 30 seconds for people to get into the live stream. Then we're going to begin. I'm going to try to pin something to the top real quick. Come on, let's get it. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. Let me try. It's not. Oh, no, I didn't get it. Hold on. I'm trying to pin my little thing to the top. Come on. Really? Pin. Got it. Okay, let's wait about 20 more seconds for people to get in the live stream. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to do a triple shot this morning for the health. I got ready water, coffee, Bragg's organic apple cider vinegar. I drink it just like this. I'm a savage. Woo! That's not a promotion, too. I'm not getting paid by Bragg's. Although I did meet Patty Bragg, and she gave me a bunch of free Bragg stuff. She didn't tell me to promote it. I just want to do it out of the love. You show me love, I show you love. But hold on. Whew, you can't really just drink apple cider vinegar like that and try to begin the live stream. A little sip. Whew. Sorry, I'm pumped up this morning. Mainly because I take care of myself like that. Anyway, all jokes aside, even though that wasn't a joke, that really just happened. Something monumental happened yesterday. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she is a 28-year-old socialist, democratic socialist, part of the Democratic Socialists of America. She was a Bernie Sanders supporter, campaigned with him, and took it to the next level. She was just working a year ago in a bar, and now she just beat Joe Crowley for the Democratic spot to run for, I believe, the House, or to be the representative of her district. I don't know exactly what the proper terminology of that is. We'll find out in November. She didn't totally win. She's got to beat a Republican in November, I believe, but there's a high chance of that because it's New York and one of the most Democratic districts in the U.S., and it's the first time in 14 years that anybody tried to unseat the Democrat. Usually the Democrats just win and go off against the Republicans, but I told you, I warned these liberals, and people don't get me. I told all my friends that are mad at me now, I said, Donald Trump's going to win the election, even though I didn't vote for him. I told them that 5 months before the election. Everyone thought I was crazy. And I told you a year ago that the Democratic Party is going to be taken over by socialists. I've called this. It's going to happen. And I'll tell you why in this live stream, psychologically and politically, why it's bound to happen. I mean, it's inevitable. It's never not going to happen, because the Democratic side is just boosted up by the Jimmy Kimmels, and people say, why do you say that every day? Because I don't know, because they're lying to people. Maybe you want to be lied to and you want to lose elections and lose your party to socialists. I thought maybe people would want to win elections and not lose their party to socialists. I don't know. Am I crazy to want to help people actually get better and improve their team? But you have pure absolute delusion and inauthenticity on the Democratic Party side. I don't agree. I'm just going to put it out there. I supported Bernie Sanders because he was a revolutionary. I kind of wanted him to be like a Donald Trump, throw a chink in the chain in the media and the Democratic Party. But I was never a big fan of socialist policies, to be honest. But I will say that progressives and socialists are just more authentic than Democrats. People are gravitating towards them because they're authentic. You could watch, someone like Kyle Kulinski on YouTube, or Jimmy Dore, or even the Young Turks, who I'm not really a big fan of, but you can listen to them and learn new things and be like, oh, I trust these people a little bit. Sometimes a lot of people don't trust them, but it's like they have some oomph to them. You know what I'm saying? You can watch their live stream and be like, oh, this guy's a real guy. The Democrats have 0% authenticity. No one what is their stance? They don't even know what they believe. How am I supposed to know what you believe when you don't even know what you believe? You got videos of Chuck Schumer 2 years ago saying illegal immigration is wrong. It's illegal. It's in the name. And then he's saying anybody who says undocumented workers is trying to downplay illegal immigrants. And then this year he's saying undocumented workers are so mistreated. I'm so not racist. It's like, bro, we have video of you 2 years ago saying, do you think we don't see this? Do you think we don't know that the late night hosts are lying? Do you think we don't know that the Democratic Party is a complete, absolute conundrum? It's like when it comes to war, they're extremists, whether it be right or left leaning, they're pro-war. The only time that they compliment Donald Trump is when he bombed Syria, and then they're like, that's a presidential move. It's do you think we don't notice that? And then when it comes to policies, they don't know what they're talking about. They've isolated the bulk of the American people. It's just so obvious. Bernie Sanders was ridiculously popular. Whether you love the guy or dislike the guy, I happen to really think he's totally phony now. I thought he was authentic for a while, but I see his true colors. Doesn't matter, though. I'm not here to, point fingers or anything, but Bernie Sanders had rallies that went 20, 30 blocks. And then you had Hillary Clinton, who couldn't even fill up a gymnasium, and she had 3 gay Latino protesters be like, Hillary, you're a bad person, and then she ran out of the gymnasium. It's obvious there's millions of people who like or still do like Bernie Sanders. That's just the reality of the world. There's tens of millions of people who like Donald Trump. Even if you're a Democrat, my thought would be, even if I was a Democratic Party liberal, and I would be like, how do I gain Trump supporters? How do I get them to understand what I'm talking about? How do I get Bernie Sanders supporters to vote for Democrats? They don't do that. They literally say, you're a loser, Bernie Sanders family. You live in your parents' basement, Bernie Sanders supporter. Do you think is that a way that you think you're going to gain votes from the Bernie crowd? They absolutely, not even remotely. They could have made Bernie Sanders the chairman of environmental regulations, and literally, they would have had millions of Bernie Sanders voters voted for Hillary Clinton. But instead, they called them a bunch of losers in their parents' basements, so nobody wanted to vote for Hillary Clinton. They called Trump voters deplorables and racist, sexist, and xenophobic, and instead of pivoting and realizing, What am I missing? Why do so many people like Donald Trump, but people don't like us? Instead of literally being like, I'm sorry, or, hey, maybe I'm going to try to figure out who you are and appeal to you and be like, oh, they like common sense and just basic border security and basic, measures to stop crime and corruption. Oh, maybe we'll include that in our platform. They don't do that. They say, you're a Nazi. You're a terrorist anomaly. You're a Zionist terrorist Nazi. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what part of treating people like that do you think is going to get you a bunch of votes? So from the jump during this election, I mean, half the reason Hillary Clinton lost is because she was really never that popular. Even people who voted for her, they didn't vote because they liked her. They voted because they didn't like Donald Trump. They voted because they were scared of Donald Trump. People voted for Donald Trump. A lot of them voted because they didn't like Hillary Clinton. But a lot of people genuinely like Donald Trump. I'm going to be honest. Right now, I thought he was crazy, racist, sexist. I was caught in that whole delusion during the election. But now, I genuinely like the guy. I think he's hilarious. Just the same way a WWE, wrestler is hilarious. Except, he does the antics, but then his words are all crazy and funny. But his actions are actually very kind and pretty decent, I would say. As far as other politicians, he's getting a lot of very optimistic stuff done, and I don't think he's racist or sexist. I think he's just like basic common sense president of America. But like, people genuinely like Donald Trump. People genuinely like Bernie Sanders. People genuinely like this 28-year-old socialist lady because she's 28 years old and probably, has like basic understanding of like human psychology and just is like a normal person. But like, the Democrats are so far detached from reality. They don't even know up from down, left from right, and they're just screaming at everybody who doesn't agree with them. So, like, of course you're going to lose your party to socialists because, one, socialists are more popular than liberals are. It happened during the Bernie-Hillary election. I mean, Bernie won many, many states. He almost beat her, and he had way more grassroots activism and support. It's just the way it was. So, since then, the Democrats have not even tried to pivot. They've got more aggressive in their stance. They have Judd Apatow on Twitter calling people Nazis. You have, literally people putting out movies with Sony Pictures saying that little kids deserve to be raped by pedophiles because you don't like the president. It's like, what part of that strategy do you think is going to translate to the election? And the reason that socialists are going to take over the Democratic Party, they're already starting to do it. This guy was not just a normal Democrat. I want to say, people, he was the 4th ranking House Democrat. He was next in line possibly to be the House Speaker. They were looking at him to be the Speaker. This is a top Democrat leader that got ousted by a 28-year-old random, I don't want to say random because I'm sure she worked hard, but Democratic Socialist Bernie Sanders supporter. Your entire party is failing on every single level. The media is failing because the media doesn't tell the truth. And the reason is not even because some people will say platform. Her platform is pretty extreme. It's abolish ICE. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to abolish a law enforcement agency. She's socialist universal single government health care. It's a lot of it's like a guarantee of federal jobs. It's a lot of like very nice talking points. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But my analysis of it, and people could have other things, is I don't even think it's really the policies of Bernie Sanders and the policies of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of why socialists are going to take over the Democratic Party. It's the authenticity. It's the fact that you can listen to them and realize that you're not being completely lied to. They might mislead you, not on purpose. They're doing it by mistake. But Democrats, there's no authenticity. I mean, you can't listen. I'm not listening to Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or any Democrat ever in the past 2 years. There's not a single one I've ever listened to and been like, oh, they actually have a heart and a soul and they're trying to make a decent point. And even the only one I can say is Van Jones. There's been and Van Jones has said some ridiculous things as well, but there's been a few moments where Van Jones has made sense and been honest. And I was like, wow, that's a Democrat being honest. Congratulations, Van Jones. He's like someone who has a little bit of energy to him and real authenticity. But no, I mean, let Van Jones run for president. He's probably your best option, sadly, even though he's just a CNN commentator. It's like, what are you doing? I don't even know, like, why, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? The only people that don't realize this are, sadly, the late night television hosts, the people who own the tech companies. You have, you know, the Democratic politicians and these people who pretend to be other people on television, actors, I think they're called. They're the only ones who don't get it. It's like they're wavering in their own delusion. Meanwhile, socialists are taking over the party. And I've called this for over a year, for 2 years and 3 years, and you know, half the country's going towards Trump, a lot of the country's going towards socialists, and you're left with nothing. But I don't really truly believe it's even because of policy. Maybe a lot of people do agree with the policy, but it's because of there's no authenticity and absolutely no substance on the Democratic side anymore. What's their platform? Who's their leader? They have no idea. They don't know. We don't like Trump. Okay, yeah, but what do you want to do? Stop him from doing that? Yeah, but what's your solution? How are you going to clean up the streets of Chicago? You know, people are murdering like 3-year-old and 5-year-old kids. It's disgusting. You know, someone called my phone. There's 50,000 people getting arrested at the border every month, and people are a little bit, you know, concerned with that. You have like health insurance going up. You have taxes are going up. You have, you know, people's wages that are not quite fitting what they need to buy to, you know, the economy, even though it's up. Wages are not translating like they used to be able to buy a house and supply your family. So people are concerned. So at least Bernie and the socialists say, hey, we're going to provide you with all this stuff. So people are like, oh, yeah. And Trump's like, hey, I'm going to cut taxes and do this. Hey, yeah. Democrats are like, you're a loser and you're a deplorable, you're a sexist. It's like there's like millions of poor white people and you're like, oh, we hate you. We want you to die or something. I don't know. I'm not saying that they say that directly, but it just seems like that's their vibe. It's like, who's going to go towards that? And I want to say also, bring up an example of what happened yesterday and why the Democratic Party is also failing and why the whole left ideology is kind of failing as well. Maxine Waters, you know, congresswoman or representative, I don't even know what she does besides talk sometimes, but she said that, you know, we should make Trump officials and Trump people feel uncomfortable wherever they go, you know, make sure that they know that they're not welcome anywhere, basically calling for civil unrest, which is an extremely reckless thing to do, not only on a personal level, but politically. Once again, it's just running sane people and people with like a heart and a soul away. Because I tell people all the time, I don't care if people are liberal or progressive, be nice with them, play basketball, have a drink with them. Like, that's your brother, that's your sister, that's your friend, that's your family member. Like, who cares? At the end of the day, like, let's have fun. Like, we're arguing about stuff that we don't even have a direct effect on. But you know, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi called her out and said that's reckless, and I think Chuck Schumer said that's un-American. So what happens on the left side? Because you have to remember, and I don't want to say on the right, but on the left, people are not judged by content of character. And this goes progressive and Democrat too. So if there's any progressives or Democrats watching, just consider what I'm saying. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to agree with it. Just consider, because you might find that there's a lot of truth in what I'm saying. So on the left, I don't see them judging people by content of character. I see a lot of race, religion, gender at the forefront of discussions rather than trying to get to the core of who someone is. So on the left, they call out Maxine Waters, which is the right thing to do. Be like, hey, there's no self-accountability on the left. There's no self-responsibility on the left. It's blame ICE, blame the police, blame the politicians, blame this person, blame that, and then give us more of your tax money while we make government bigger. Wait, what? Government's corrupt, so we should give more of our tax money to the government? Doesn't make sense on that note, but people are now saying, and it goes from Hot 97 host Ebro to, you know, people on CNN, it's all over. They're saying that it's racist to call Maxine Waters out. So if Maxine Waters makes a mistake, you're on the left. This is strictly a leftist ideology. You're not allowed to say that she's wrong because she's a human being. I don't look at Maxine Waters as a black woman. I look at her as a human being, as an American, as a woman, as a politician. Like, there's many labels you could put on Maxine Waters. It doesn't always have to be black, black, white, black, white. It's getting obnoxious. The true racists are coming out. But you have literal people on CNN and top Democrats saying, how dare an old white man, Chuck Schumer, and how dare an old white woman, Nancy Pelosi, tell the truth to an old black woman, Maxine Waters. This is why the left is failing, because they don't judge people on content of character, and they have no self-responsibility. And this goes for progressives too. They're going to find out the hard way that socialism doesn't really work as well as they think they do, and identity politics is a plague to any sort of intelligent discussion and solutions. But they don't do that. They don't say, hey, this is right, this is wrong. That's why you have tens of thousands of people murdering each other every year. You have thousands of people dying in Chicago. You have 99% of the crime and the violence in the United States nobody wants to talk about because it doesn't fit their agenda. I don't care if it's a black person, a white person, a Latino person, an Asian, an Indian. I don't care if it's an alien who comes down here and starts shooting people. I'm going to call it like I see it. What's going on? How are we going to solve it? Can we hold people accountable? Because no matter what position someone's in, you don't have to start killing your neighbors and your brothers and your sisters in your community. But Democrats and progressive socialists, they don't do that. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want the kids in Chicago to stop killing each other. They want to put a microscope on the 0.0000001% of killings and say, let's blame everything on the police. The police could do a better job for sure, but let's blame it all on them and let's make sure no one has any self-accountability so black and Latino kids never learn the lesson. Like, oh my God, Maxine Waters said something dumb. She's, allowed to say something wrong, but in the leftist ideology, there's no way that a black woman can say something wrong, so you must be a racist for trying to tell kids not to kill themselves, and you must be a racist for telling a woman, a grown adult woman, that what she said is reckless when it's literally reckless. That's their whole ideology. They don't have self-accountability. They don't have common sense. They don't want to fight the solution. That's why you see socialist Bernie Sanders doing little campaign trails with Sean King. Because Bernie Sanders and Sean King, they don't want the kids to have a healthy mindset. They don't want the kids to stop killing each other. They don't want murder and violence to go down in the United States. Under socialists and Democrats, it's going to go up. And it has nothing to even do with politics and political. It has to do with a mindset and energy that they're instilling on people. They're telling people it's okay to do that. It's okay to blame other people. It's okay to ignore 99.9% of crime. It's okay as long as you just blame the other people, as long as you claim racism when you say something bad. What type of message is that sending to our kids if you're a prominent Democrat and you say that anybody who says something wrong that's black or Latino or Asian or Indian or whatever the flavor of the day is, they can't possibly be wrong because of their race? That's racism. It's racist. It's literally racist to think that just because a white person says something to a black person, that it's all of a sudden racism. But this is the modern day Democratic Party. This is why they're failing and losing to socialists and losing to Trump. Because their agenda makes absolutely no sense. They just circle around their discussion on TV that no one cares about, saying Russia hacked the election. It's been a year and a half. They have absolutely no proof besides a bunch of Facebook ads that if you combine them all up, total up all the Facebook ads, even though most of them were anti-Trump and pro-Bernie Sanders, and they were all just instilling just complete confusion. I've reached more people in a month than all of those ads did in a year, and they spent $1 million to do it. So that's all. They don't even have proof. But they don't talk to people. They don't try to connect with people. They don't try to understand. They don't try to get to the core of it. They say everything's racist, everything's sexist, everything's xenophobic. If you disagree with me, you're a terrible person. If you disagree with me and you're black, now all of a sudden we're going to be racist and call you all sorts of nasty names. If you're a Latino, there's millions of Latinos. I mean, literally every day I get, people on Twitter, a gay Latino from Los Angeles. It's like there's all sorts of people. That's the great thing about America is you don't have to be you could be whatever you want. You don't have to think a certain way. This is not, the mental imprisonment of people. You can be a free thinker. Think how you want. You don't have, just because you're a gay Latino doesn't mean you have to believe in high taxes and big government and like complete identity politics. A lot of people are sick of it because if I'm a person, I don't want to be judged by the color of my skin. Judge me by the content of what I'm saying, but they don't do that. So not only do they have absolutely a confusing agenda, what's the Democratic Party agenda? Can somebody tell me? I have no idea what it is. What are they doing? They're hating on other people, and they've been ignoring the huge boost on the left, which is the socialists. I told you for a year, and the Democrats that ignore me, the Democrats and the liberals that hate everything I'm saying and just get so nasty, what you should be doing, and I'm just being honest, is listen and learn from what I'm saying if you want to win an election and not lose your party to literal socialists, people that are pushing for a socialist agenda that is even further left and more extreme than Democrats. But I'm also this is my prediction for a year or two from now, when socialists take over the Democratic Party, which it's inevitable, unless they learn, unless they pivot and start to try to appeal to like 100 million plus people, the Democrats and the followers of the Democrats are just going to become socialists. I think at a certain point, the socialists are just going to swallow up their support base too, because no offense, I've been a lifelong Democrat and a liberal-leaning person my whole life, and there's millions of people like me. If you're following the Democratic Party right now and you're following their media sources and you believe them, you don't really have a big concern for truth, validity, objectivity, all of these things that matter, common sense, like morality. So what's the difference between just supporting a socialist? Well, they're anti-Trump, and they'll pander to the racism like I will. They'll just talk about race, religion, and gender, and they'll march with Shaun King, and they'll blame everything on the police, and they'll ignore tens of thousands of people dying in Chicago, and they won't talk about the economy, and they'll do this. So it's like, what's the difference between supporting a Democrat, listening to Trevor Noah and the late night hosts and the fake media, and following a Democrat? Following a socialist, because the Democrats' real agenda is hate Trump, oppose Trump, get Trump out of there, hate conservatives, hate people based on the color of their skin, treat people like 1960s. So, socialists do a majority of the same thing. The only difference from socialists to Democrats is and please, forgive me if this upsets you. The further you drift from the truth, the further the truth is going to bother you and upset you. And people have drifted so far from the truth that a basic liberal, left-leaning, literally Democratic stance from a year ago is now considered the far right. That's how far people have gone. That if you say a basic liberal thing, a basic Democrat Party stance, people think you're the far right. So don't take this wrong, but you have to understand, I got a little sidetracked, but there is a delusion going on the left where they don't know up from down, they don't know left from right, and the socialists are coming in with a clear set agenda. I lost my train of thought a little bit, but they're going to jump on the socialist train because the whole ideology is hate Trump, oppose conservatives, and progressives do all of those things. So what could the Democratic Party do to gain more support? What could they do to not lose the party to socialists? Because this is probably going to happen over the next few years. You have to pivot and change and learn and listen and stop being so rude and stop being so negative and stop being so off-putting. This was a big thing on conservatives and on the right wing for a long time. The left wing gained power because conservatives and Republicans were too nasty and closed-minded. They're mad at gay people all the time. You know what I'm saying? They're saying this, they're saying that. Republicans and conservatives for a long time have been very, very off-putting. It's no different. The psychology translates to the left as well. So if you're a Democrat, doesn't matter how great you think you are. It doesn't matter how much better you think you are because you own Twitter. People are people, and you have to show love and reach out to them. And there's hundreds of millions of people who don't feel how you feel, and you're not even making an effort to speak to them and be kind to them and be considerate. You're just blasting past them. But I've been telling you, that little echo chamber is very, very small. The Bernie Sanders and the Donald Trump echo chambers are a lot bigger. And you're starting to see that with a top Democrat falling to a Democratic Socialist. So I want to say the good part about this is that Democrats hopefully at some point will learn their lesson and realize that something is going profoundly wrong in their leadership. They have no leadership. They're fighting about racism and sexism, and you can't even criticize somebody with a certain color of skin. Even though I do want to say, maybe this will be an unpopular opinion, but the only real racism that is systemic now, because there's no at least legislation. There's no legislation that's racist anymore, except for, basically it's racist against Asians and it's racist against white people. You have affirmative action. There's literally Google, Twitter, all of these tech companies are literally racist now, where they'll hire you if you're a person of color, you have a certain ethnicity. So all of the racism is actually going in the favor of what the left would call minorities. I don't like to use that word because I think it's a negative, down-putting word, but that's what the left does. They put people in a box and then act like they're going to help them. But the legislation is now racist against white and Asian people because they're doing well. You know, Asians came from communist China, worked really hard, so now they have to get penalized, and the left bends over backwards and says, you know, literally, we'll let you into college with a lower GPA because of your, you know, your stance in the country, and that's fine. I'm not saying it's wrong or bad. I don't care. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm just saying that's the reality that's going on that nobody wants to talk about. Is there's legislation, racism going on at all the big tech companies, all of the, you know, all of the big colleges and universities. They literally have legislative that is favorable towards some races and not favorable towards other races, but to not lose your party to socialists, you have to be more authentic. Above even the policies of socialism and democratic socialism and progressivism, there is no authenticity on Democratic Party. Literally, you could watch Fox News and they might be annoying, they might be rude, and I'm not talking about 5 years ago Fox News, but today you can actually learn something and get like a decent analysis from a Tucker Carlson. You know, he'll talk about education, he'll talk about Syria, he'll talk about certain things. You can't turn on really CNN unless it's Jake Tapper. Every now and then he does some good work, but there's nothing of value on Democratic Party media. They're not reaching out to anybody. They're not connecting with anybody. They're not really like reaching out to the big bulk of political movements in the United States, and they're just like delusional about it, and they think if they keep repeating it, that somehow it'll go true. So be more authentic. Think about what you're doing. Have a set structure of solutions, because just because you hate Trump, it's not going to solve the crime. It's not going to stop people from killing each other in the streets. It's not going to stop, you know, health insurance rates from going up. It's not going to stop a lot of these things that nobody wants to talk about. And I do want to say with democratic socialism as well, while I'm excited to see some new blood in there and excited to see the Democrats falling like I knew they would, I won't say I'm excited about it, but it's like something that it's just blatantly obvious, and I think there needs to be a lesson there so they pivot a little bit and make some reach out to somebody. But I really think the socialist agenda is very, very extreme. It's talking about abolishing a whole law enforcement agency, you know, literally stuff that'll increase taxes to 50, 60%, maybe higher. I have no idea where they're going to get the money. I would love socialism if they got the money from the Federal Reserve or the trillions of dollars that we have in debt. If you could take that money and just put us further in debt and not touch my wallet, that would be fine. But this is what people are facing. I don't agree with big government. I really don't like the thought of paying higher taxes. I don't like the thought of singularizing healthcare, putting the entire industry in one single system that is in the hands of the government. I think that sounds absolutely insane. But you know, it is what it is. A lot of people feel that way. I'm willing to debate and discuss and have conversations. But the left ideology, and I do want to say to progressives as well, if you want to impress me and people like myself, the millions of people like myself, I'm not a hater, but I'm really tired of the whole left ideology of literally not being able to be honest about virtually anything. I'm just being honest, from Democrats to socialists. When it comes to crime, a police incident, I could watch one on, and this is where I think the media really misreports a lot of stuff. I've seen Trump supporters retweet police things where they're like, oh my God, the police really messed up there. The police, that's corrupt. Like Trump supporters, and not all of them, there's a lot of really obnoxious ones, but there's there's diversity of thought on that side. You can look at a situation and say the police was wrong there, no, the person was wrong there. But I can't find a single Democrat or socialist that will be able to identify when the person is wrong. I find that the left now has zero self-accountability. Everything is someone else's fault. There's nothing that you can do is wrong. And they play this pandering game of identity politics to the core, and it's just so inauthentic to me. I can't get down with anybody on the left anymore until I could find someone that'll tell the truth. Who on the left can say, hey, you know what, I don't agree with you know, maybe the travel ban, but it's not a Muslim ban. Look at the top Democrat leaders. You have Keith Ellison. He's the leader of the DNC, or the second in line leader of the DNC. He's calling it a Muslim ban. That's just totally inaccurate. It's not a Muslim ban. It's a travel ban. It's on 7 countries, including Chad and North Korea. And it doesn't include 92% of Muslim people in the world. It doesn't include the top Muslim countries. There's still over 1 billion Muslim people that can travel to the U.S. peacefully without any problem. It's literally not a Muslim ban. No matter how many times you say it, that's a complete fabricated lie. And there's no one who on the left, Keith Ellison, one of the leaders of the DNC, calls it a Muslim ban. Bernie Sanders, the leader of the progressive socialist movement, calls it a Muslim ban. Every progressive person that follows him will call it a Muslim ban. There's nobody that will say, hey, it's not a Muslim ban. It's a travel ban because there's terrorism or bad relations in that region, and it's a basic safety precaution. I mean, you can disagree with Trump, you could call him whatever name, but you can't just lie about everything. And to be honest, I know why the Democrats are losing to the Socialists. It's not particularly because the Socialists have a better agenda. It's just because they're more honest than them. They're more authentic. They're more accurate. They make an effort to even look at a situation and tell the truth. They tell the truth about what's going on overseas and, in certain areas. So people gravitate towards them because there's some substance there. But overall, I still think, even though I watch progressive people and I enjoy some progressive news analysts, I think their agenda is ridiculously twisted. And I do think, I know because I follow them, they have no ability to not play identity politics. Everything is race, everything's religion, everything's gender. They want to damage, and this is my big problem with politics, because a lot of people say, Anomaly, you already support socialism because there's firefighters. I don't really care, and you could say this is crazy, but it's really not. Politics doesn't have as big of an effect as you think as the collective mindset of the human beings, because with our mindset, we elect the candidates in office. We buy the food, okay? It's all up to us. If we don't buy the trash food, they don't sell the trash food. If we don't buy the trash politicians, they don't sell the trash politicians. If we don't buy and watch corrupt, terrible fake news media, they can't sell fake news media. So the reason that all of these things continue is because of us. It's the collective mindset of the United States, and above the policies and politics and pandering and political, whatever you want to call it, of the left, they are blasting a negative, terrible mindset onto the American people. And then they have this crazy idea that giving up more taxes and the government is going to solve all our problems. I hate to break it to you, regardless of political, socialist, Republican, whatever, the government's not going to solve all your problems. They're not your father or your mother. They're not going to wipe your butt and literally put you in a job and do this and that. I mean, that's communism. That's what socialism leads to, is communism. And you could see why. It's because their whole mindset is skewed. And you could say socialism's not communism. Of course it's not. But it leads to it because your mindset is a communistic mindset. Your mindset is, I don't have the ability to be successful. Even though there's millions of people from every race and religion, gender, making millions of dollars. Bernie Sanders raised $200 million. I mean, the guy's a multimillionaire, has 3 houses, and he still, preaches this message, which is fine. But the mindset is a mindset of, don't have self-accountability. To stop the 20,000, 30,000 murders going on, it's not going to be from the people. It's going to be the 0.001% of police officers who kill somebody, even though that's a literal minority of statistics of how people are dying. Whether you think the police are corrupt or not, I'm not here to argue that now. I think they are as well in multiple areas as well. But I'm saying that they're not a majority of people killing each other. Even if police never killed another person again, tens of thousands of people are going to die because they're killing each other every day in Chicago and other places. So progressives and Democrats, they don't say, police are corrupt. Yeah, for sure, we're going to stop corrupt police. But you also have to do a better job. They don't say that. They say you're the victim. It's not your fault. It's because you're poor. It's because you don't have the job you want. It's because you don't have the life you want. And you know how I'm going to get you that? Give me your taxes. I'm going to make a singular government healthcare system where everybody is a one single payer, government run, monopoly healthcare system. Give me more of your taxes. We're going to abolish ICE. We're going to be completely delusional about border security. We're going to be completely delusional about travel security. We're going to ignore the fact that we pander about Scandinavian countries are so great with universal health care. Well, guess what? I'm calling this too. Save my tweet and save this video. I think this is my prediction. Maybe I'll be wrong, but Sweden is part of the Scandinavia that Bernie Sanders over. They're going far right because they're already the far right, and I'm not wishing the far right on them or the right wing, but it's because the left wing's delusional, and Sweden has hundreds of grenade attacks and explosions. People are getting murdered every day in the streets of Sweden, and that never used to happen. They had a ridiculously low crime rate, and their crime rate is booming. Their explosion rate is booming. Their grenade attack rate is up 10,000%. It's literally went from 2 grenade attacks in 20 years to like 200 grenade attacks in 2 years. It's turning into a war zone in many areas of Sweden and France and Germany and UK. And Trump says it after the news says it. And then everyone says it's not true, even though they just published that it's true 2 weeks ago. So this is why it doesn't have to be hand in hand. You don't have to push socialist policies and liberal policies and be completely delusional. It just so happens that that's their mindset. They say, give me your taxes, give me your money. It's not your fault. If you're black or you're Latino or if you're a woman, a white woman or whatever, you're the victim. You can never be wrong. Anybody talking bad to you is racist, sexist, and xenophobic. You can do what you want. You can murder people. You can do this. You can do that. It's the police's fault. It's never your fault, even when it is your fault. Just give me your tax money. We're going to raise that. And then we're just going to bring in people from all over. We're going to bring in people from Somalia and Syria, even though, that people from certain areas are destroying parts of Europe. And there's nothing wrong with those ethnicities. There's nothing wrong with being, a certain ethnicity. But what I'm saying is certain regions of the world are not in a position right now to be taking in hundreds of thousands of people. It's just, hey, let's be the United States. Let other people figure it out. And let's have a really thick vetting process. Let's make sure that the people we get are, legitimate people who are not going to harm the black, white, and Latino citizens who live here. I mean, it's not racism, it's basic common sense. But what's the socialist agenda? What's Cortez's agenda? It says make it easier for people to get here. She's trying to abolish ICE and abolish basic laws, especially laws. There's been a crackdown recently, laws that are put into place because of child trafficking at the border, because tens of thousands of girls are being raped and killed across the border because they're being kidnapped and used for political gain and whatnot, and just gang violence and all this stuff. That doesn't even exist. I'm not saying that it's everything. I'm not here trying to hype it up and say all people are bad because a few people are bad. But if your job is the security guard, your job is to protect the building. It's not to pander to people and make it easier for everyone to get in. Well, if you're the president of the United States or a politician, your job is to protect the people and make sure that they live good. So socialists and liberals don't do that. So yes, the Democratic Party is losing to socialists, and I'm not glad to see it all, but really I just want to be honest and be like, hey, wake up. Now's the time to wake up because you're losing to socialists. But I also want to say how ridiculously dangerous the ideology of the left is. And I'm not even talking about taxes and big government, which is dangerous as well, because you could say, oh my God, they're giving trillions of dollars to the Republicans, to the rich. That's the, oh my God, anomaly. How are you a GOP? I'm not even talking about Republicans right now. I'm talking about the mindset, because the mindset is what's going to change the world. It's the collective consciousness. We make the rules, and we're going backwards now because we don't judge people based on content of character. We don't have basic common sense, and I'm putting out a challenge to people on the left. I don't know a single liberal or progressive leader who will have these conversations that I'm having, because they don't want to talk about it. They don't care that Sweden is getting bombed and people are getting murdered all the time. They don't want to talk about that because it doesn't fit into their agenda of, and the agenda behind all of the policies, behind all of the politics, behind all of the pandering is 3 things that are very, very dangerous and just basic, horrible things to do as a human being. No self-accountability. My whole life, okay, my grandparents worked in factories. My parents are working class people. I have no connections, okay? I worked for 8 years, and I lived in conditions with mold, and, I got sick all the time because I lived in a small house, and, I struggled for 9 years, okay, to get here. The reason I got here was because I have self-accountability, self-responsibility, and I'm grateful and appreciative of what I have, and I figured out a way to make it and successful. The left, whether it be progressive or Democrat, there's no self-accountability. There's no self-responsibility. It's 100% a blame game and basically racially pandering to people instead of identifying what's right, what's wrong, whether it be a white, heroin addict or, so it's like I don't care the race of people. or what they're, but like who's who? Who's doing what? How are you going to keep this country safe? All of the left is trying to make this country very unsafe. Just like, Europe is becoming, and it's going to either go right wing or get more unsafe, because it's basic common sense. In order to stop the violence in the United States, it's got to be a full circle approach. Let's make the police better, okay? They can't do this. Let's make sure the law enforcement, but also let's make sure kids aren't killing each other in Chicago every single day. Let's make sure that we're not, allowing people to murder and terrorize people in our country on the day. They don't do that because they say, oh, it doesn't matter how many people are dead. It doesn't matter how many, if you're these races or you're this type of person, it doesn't matter. We'll protect you. We'll protect you by not protecting you and just taking more of your money and then acting like it's all going to go away. It's never going to go away. And there's not a single liberal or progressive leader that I have found. Like I said, I'm challenging. I'm not hating. I'm not being mean. I'm challenging you to stop being dishonest, to stop lying, to stop misleading millions of people into a failed ideology that would literally crush America at its core. Because we can't function if you don't get down to the core of any problem. And the problem is not always policies and politics and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it's people. We're buying the food. We're buying the politicians. We're doing all of this stuff, allowing it to happen because our mindsets are skewed. We have a victim mentality mindset where no matter how much you get and no matter how much you do, that it's never your fault. That's like raising a kid. If you raise your kid and just let them do whatever, they're going to be a terrible person probably, and they're going to be a brat, and they're going to annoy everybody that they're around because they have no self-accountability and self-responsibility. Oh, there's nothing I can do is wrong. I'm a perfect angel. Then they end up being crazy. That's how you get a terrible kid and raise a terrible human. It's no different with politics. If you're constantly telling your followers, you can't possibly be wrong. There's nothing you have to do. You don't have to go and be successful. I'll make you successful. The government will make you successful. We'll provide you a job. Oh, we're going to make sure there's federal jobs for everyone. The economy is better than it's ever been. There's more jobs available than people looking for jobs. I mean, what jobs are you going to offer that's not already there? Doesn't even make sense. But there needs to be self-accountability at the core of the platform. And I'm sorry to get a little, extra heated, but I'm very passionate about this because I do love a lot of liberal leaders, and I do love a lot of progressive leaders, and I do want to see progressives succeed. But until you are honest about virtually everything, whether it be border security, travel security, Middle East, what's really going on there besides just the war and the politics and the selling weapons and the fake news, there's also a religious battle going on. There's a deeper plot from world leaders to basically have a globalist sort of agenda where they have organizations and they're funding certain countries and destroying certain economies. But at the core of it, the basic mindset behind that thing is just a complete fail in my personal perspective. And I'm challenging and telling people to consider what I'm saying and try to see if you can get a progressive leader or a liberal leader to be like, hey, we don't like Donald Trump and maybe we want this type of health care, but maybe, just maybe, we'll stop lying about the border. Maybe, just maybe, we'll stop lying about travel security. Maybe, just maybe, we'll stop lying about every single incident in the United States. Maybe, just maybe, we'll stop ignoring 90% of crime and death and murder and pandering to the 0.001% because it's trendy. Maybe, just maybe, we'll stop telling people that there's nothing that they could do is wrong, that if they say something that's wrong, it's racist of the other person for correcting them because of the skin color. Maybe, just maybe, we'll stop being racist and stop prioritizing people based on their skin color and get back to the Martin Luther King days of judging people by a content of character. Maybe, just maybe, if I say these things and I speak about them to people who listen and understand, oh, Namli, I don't agree with you on your policies and politics, but you have a point, because there's not a single liberal or progressive leader or news analyst who will tell you these things. They're going to lie about everything because their way of gaining support to socialism is by pandering. It's by saying, we love Latinos, we love the black community. There's nothing you can do that's wrong. No, it's racist if someone tells you it's wrong. Come here. Come on, we got you. So you're creating a organization of a lot of people who basically want to take 0% self-accountability and self-responsibility. You're blaming 100% of the problems on law enforcement and Latino and Black and white American citizens and Asian American citizens who put their lives on the line every day to keep the country safe. Because, Border Patrol and ICE, they don't just deport people, they also stop human traffickers. So if you abolish ICE, you're going to get hundreds of little girls raped and murdered because you don't care, because that doesn't fit your agenda of pandering, oh, I love Latinos, so I'm going to have no border security. Yeah, that's a good way to get women and children murdered and raped. It's not this utopian society of, oh, we're going to open the borders and it's just going to be perfect. There's just going to be people of all colors dancing and singing. We already have a great country where there's people of all colors and ethnicities dancing and singing. We don't need no common sense and just complete delusion and destruction of our law enforcement and complete lack of self-accountabilities in our communities that are not getting better in certain areas, because you don't hold people accountable. You tell them that what they're doing is okay. You justify what they're doing. You promote what they're doing. You endorse what they're doing. And the people that put their lives on the line to protect those communities, I'm not talking about the 5 or 10 or 20 or 30% of bad cops. I'm talking about the 70% of good cops. The Latino, the Black, the white, the Asian, the American Indian, people who every day go out and have to deal with murderers and criminals and all of these things that you could never deal with. You know what I'm saying? It's not all everything that they do. And all of the agendas like, oh, we're going to do gun control. Well, talk to a police officer. Most in gun-free zones, all of the crimes are done with illegally purchased guns. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, we're going to pass legislation that stops gun control. It's not going to stop it because all the crime's done with illegal guns. So it sounds good. Everyone's going to be, oh my God, I'm such a better person. But you're not actually going to solve everything. It's the same thing with these policies. You're not going to be able to make hundreds of thousands of people and millions of people do what you want to do just because the government says you're going to do it. You could pass this legislation. You could pat yourself on the back with how not racist and what a good person you are. But at the end of the day, you're not going to do it just like the gun control debate, because people are still going to do all of this stuff and it doesn't include it in your legislation. You have to be honest with people. You have to tell them the truth. You have to hold certain people accountable. And you have to not be so ridiculously naive and fake that you're going to put all of the citizens of every race, religion, and gender in danger because you don't want to talk about it, because you want to act like Scandinavia is a perfect utopia. No, it's not. They're going to go right wing. They're going to go further right than Donald Trump. And you're going to be like, oh my, I thought Bernie Sanders told me that the healthcare was really good. No, it doesn't work. Not just because of the healthcare, but because the ideology is a failed ideology. It's a racist ideology at the core. It's a bigoted, discriminatory ideology. Instead of judging people by content of character and keeping people safe, you constantly just pander, race, religion, gender, ignore 99.9% of the murder and the crime, and let people die and let children get raped and trafficked. And then you just want to keep talking about the 0.001% and saying, oh, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. Yeah, congratulations. You pointed out when a cop did something terrible twice a year. We know cops make mistakes, and I'm not saying it's okay. When they do that, it's horrible. Fire the person, hold them accountable, make them go to jail if they murdered somebody, illegally. But that doesn't take away that it's not like you're a news analyst. Now you're a politician. Now you won in New York City. So now you're passing legislation and you're doing these things. That's all I'm saying. I just don't know a single person on the left, and I'm not saying this to be mean or anything. I'm not saying that the right is perfect. They have annoying, obnoxious, stubborn people too. But there's no one. The left is a failed ideology. It's a cult. It's a socialist cult or a delusional Democrat cult where you just have to think the way people think, but that thought process doesn't really make sense, and it's not a full circle approach to what's really going on. And that's all I'm saying is if socialists are going to start winning and Democrats continue to gain seats, I'm just asking, as an American citizen who's been a lifelong left-leaning activist, who's been I won't even say a Democrat, but I've been a left-leaning person. I voted for Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein. I'm disturbed by the trajectory of the left because they won't talk about any of these things I want to talk about. And as somebody who lives here and cares about people of every ethnicity, race, and religion, how hard is it to not lie about everything? How hard is it to not lie about a travel ban, or lie about border security, or lie about basic statistics and math and science and human nature and psychology? Like, is it really that hard to push that agenda but not lie? Does it go hand in hand? Do you have to push a failed ideology and a completely ridiculous, destructive mindset along with the policies. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm considering. But the story here today is the Democratic Party is being taken over by Socialist, a top House leader who is next in line and being considered to be a speaker, lost to a 28-year-old Democratic Bernie Sanders Socialist. The Democratic Party is in turmoil. When you call out a Democratic Party leader, they say it's racism now because apparently if you're an adult woman, you're not allowed to be held accountable for what you say if you're a certain ethnicity. I mean, it's literally in turmoil. But this is what the left does, and it's going to happen on the socialist side too if people don't consider what I'm saying. Because the ideology is you're not going to the top. You're not trying to win. You're trying to lose. You reward people for losing. You reward people who are doing terrible things. It's a race to the bottom. So this is going to keep happening. Of course, when you try to tell the truth to people that you've lied to for 5 years, of course you're going to get backlash, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. The Democratic Party is absolutely collapsing on every way, shape, and form. Donald Trump is the president. Socialists are taking over the Democratic Party. And if people really want to salvage the Democratic Party, they'll consider what I'm saying, because I've said it for 2 years and it's just coming true. It's not because I'm wishing it on you, or it's just because that's the way the world works. It's human nature. You can't lie and make believe fake news all the time and then expect it to come true. That's not how the American people feel. There's a lot of energy on the socialist side. There's a lot of energy on the Trump side. There's a lot of good people on both sides who are looking for leadership and they're looking for accurate information, and people don't know what's going on anymore. And you constantly feed them with negativity, hate, complete delusion, and leaders that nobody really likes, and people that don't really reach out to anybody. They don't reach out to the left and they don't reach out to the right. They're just like a sporadic. They have no agenda. And the second that you do, now that they've lied so much and they've lost so many people to both sides, now when they do tell the truth and do try to hold one of their leaders accountable, you get backlash from every which way. They call you racist, they call you sexist, they call you xenophobic. But that's the left nowadays. You can't be honest, you can't be accurate, you can't have a full-scale approach, you can't talk to another human being, because everything has to be about race, religion, and gender, and self-accountability and self-responsibility are avoided like the plague. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you'd like to support, I have it pinned to the top, and I also have it at the top of the video. It is donor box and Patreon. Patreon, I believe, accepts credit cards or PayPal. I'm not really sure. It's a once-a-month support. It's basically because YouTube and every other website basically doesn't even want me to exist, because I'm not a liberal Democrat. They just want to lose the party to socialists, and they don't want the truth or knowledge or wisdom or unity or love or compassion or anything like that. So they're like, Anomaly, you're not allowed to make money. We don't want to sponsor you. We want to kick you off our partnership platform. We want to delete you off the internet, whatever. So thank you guys for supporting on Patreon. It's once a month. And donor box accepts PayPal. I appreciate your support on that front as well. It means a lot to me. Even if you don't do either of those, it's okay. I still love and appreciate you. It's not all about that, but that does help me exist and really build a media analysis platform. I'm forever grateful. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I'll be back later this week, and please, if you are a Democrat or a liberal and you're confused at why Trump is president and why 28-year-old Bernie Sanders supporters are beating you at major elections, consider what I'm saying. Go back and watch my viral videos. Listen to the message, because the core of the message, there's no hate, there's no racism, there's no sexism, there's no xenophobia. It's just basic common sense. It's just basic self-accountability. It's just basic self-awareness. And a lot of my viral videos are just basic truth that if you ignore it, it's not going to go away. It's just going to continue to leave you in a constant state of anger. That's why you have top level multimillionaires freaking out, calling everyone Nazis and I don't even want to talk about it right now. Thank you guys so much. I'll be back later today or tomorrow.